Are you struggling to conceive? You have options, and at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group, we'll make sure you have the guidance and support you need. PREG is known for individualized fertility care that's unique to every patient. We take the time to provide a reassuring and empowering experience because we believe that you deserve nothing less. Let us help you on your journey to parenthood. Visit us at pregonline.com to learn more. Get the guidance and support you need at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group.
Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, but you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi.
And I'm Fruit Loop.
So Fruit Loop and I both had a very lazy day at our respective homes. And so we started watching a lot of videos about the case, Nancy Grace, some web sleuths videos, and we pulled some information out of all of it that we thought would be fun to talk about tonight. And before we get into all that, we have been asking our listeners on Twitter to submit anything you would like for us to talk about. And we had a question from Susan Becker today, and she asks, after spending the day at Yellowstone, Lori, JJ, and Tylee went back to Lori's apartment, and Alex stayed until 10 p.m. He then returned in the middle of the night for about 45 minutes. Could this be when he or they killed Tylee as she slept? And I think it makes the most sense as far as when she might have been killed. What about you, Fruit Loop?
Yeah, I agree. It was in that time, I would think.
And you have the times in front of you, so we're just going to run through the timeline real quick just to clarify what happened that evening.
Yeah, and we'll just the part where he's at Lori's apartment. So 8:37 and 9:35, Alex's phone is at Lori's apartment. So that's about an hour. 8 minutes later, from 9:43 to 9:53, he's at the Maverick on Main Street in Rexburg. And we know that's like a gas station convenience store. There is then 51 minutes that is missing that we don't know about. And we don't know if the FBI and the police didn't release that time or what's happening there. So we just don't know. So then at 10:44 to 11:15, which is about half an hour, he's at Lori's apartment again. Then there's another hour that we don't know where he was. So I'm sorry, not an hour, half an hour that we don't know where he was. And then at 11:44, he's at his own apartment. And then we get into from midnight to 12:44, which is about an hour. He is in his own apartment. And 2 hours later, so at 2:42 to 3:37, which is about 55 minutes, he's at Lori's apartment. And we talked about this is the only time that he appears to go to Lori's apartment, between midnight and 6 a.m. Then there's 1 hour later, here we go again, that we don't know his whereabouts. At least it's not listed on the documents. And at 4:37 a.m. to 8:59, he's in his own apartment. So that kind of gives you the breakdown of the times. So maybe you can understand it a little bit better.
And also, we don't know that he took his phone with that large 4-hour gap either. It could be he left his phone at home and went over to Lori's, and that could have been the time where Tylee was killed. I guess maybe they may have more insight into that we just don't know about. But if he did leave his phone at home for those 4 hours, that he could have been over there at that point too. But we feel like it was during the night at some point.
Yeah.
I don't see where he would get her in the car and take her to Chad's and get her out of the car with the risk of being seen. And so, yeah, we kind of believe it was during that night.
Exactly.
So about 3 weeks ago, we had this crazy theory where, if you remember, the Vine link set off an alert to people that follow Lori Vallow on that app that she had been released. And so for about 10 minutes, the internet was abuzz. Everybody was confused. And then they said, oh, no, she hasn't been released. So we started looking at the Vine website where they didn't have where she was listed as being in the Rexburg Detention Center. So we thought maybe they had moved her in anticipation for different charges, but I think we could probably say we were a little wrong on that.
Yeah, I think so.
It was fun to theorize, but I mean, this is the second time in my life I've been wrong. So I'm got that going for me.
Yes.
You know me better
It
than
was
that.
my
Fruit.
first. So.
Yeah. So yesterday, was it yesterday? The 11th.
Yes.
Yes. Yesterday was the 1 year anniversary of Charles's murder.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. Like, it seems like forever ago.
It does.
And then it's just been a year.
Right. And I mean, if you look at everything that happened in a year, you go from Charles being shot and killed to Tammy Daybell dying, the kids are murdered, Alex dies, Hawaii, marriages, all this stuff. That was a crazy year for everybody involved.
Yes.
I mean, it seems like nonstop. But so we were talking about the 1 year anniversary of his death. And the one thing that really just bothers me is the fact that Lori did not notify Charles's sons until the next day, which was the 12th of July at 4:30 p.m. that their dad had died.
Yeah, it's just wrong on all levels.
Yeah. And if you've read those texts, she was very nonchalant about it almost. Well, we're waiting on the medical examiner's report. Didn't tell him he had been shot, which probably would have had them very interested at that point as to why. But it's interesting because the day that she told the boys their dad had died, that's the day she tried to claim the life insurance policy for Charles.
Yeah, and we have some other information on that as well.
Yeah, so Fruit Loop and I were super lazy all day. She was at her house, I was at mine. And so we started watching stuff, and we actually just found a lot of really interesting tidbits, and this is one of them. So Charles's lawyer was on the Nancy Grace show. His lawyer, I guess, when he was divorcing Lori.
Yes.
Originally. And what did he have to say on there?
So he tells Nancy that 5 months before Charles died, he predicted his own death. And we know that he told him if something happened to him, it would be Lori and Alex who took his life, killed him or whatever. So Charles is talking to his attorney, and we know Lori accused Charles of cheating. And so Charles denies cheating on Lori. He volunteered to take a polygraph test to prove that he did not cheat on her.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, that's that's a polygraph test. Like,
right.
They're going to know, that he didn't cheat. So,
right.
And he also said that he would put cash money up. If he failed, he would give Lori cash money if he failed.
Wow. That's he seems pretty sure he would pass that, I guess.
Yeah. And Nancy Grace makes a point and says, when somebody thinks someone's cheating on them, they dig and dig until they find that mistress.
Oh, yeah. Women become private investigators when they think their spouse is cheating. I've been solicited a few times to do some surveillance for friends. I always say no. I don't like to get in the middle of stuff, but, it's easy to find things. And it's also easy to leave a trail, as we've learned in this case. I think when you're doing bad things done in the dark always come to light. But to put money up on passing that polygraph kind of makes me think Charles was very content in where he was and that he wasn't a cheater.
Yeah. And no mistress has ever been found that we know of to this day.
And that's pretty big because, let's just say that there was, and I don't think there was, but either you're going to have one or two kind of women. The one type of woman that would love the attention of being associated with this case in any way. And then you would have somebody who would never admit it just because of what's going on in this case. But I think if he's willing to put money on it, and I don't think it's true. I mean, Lori's accused a lot of people of a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So the other stuff that he mentioned was that Charles sent him evidence that Lori was cheating, and it was between Chad and Lori. So the attorney advises Charles to change his beneficiary.
Very smart.
Yeah. So a few days went by, and Charles contacts his attorney and tells him he just tried to change his life insurance beneficiary, but somebody had put a password on his account. And he told him he never had a password on his account ever. So when he talks to the life insurance company, they tell him that just days before Charles called, that someone called pretending to be him and put a password on his account.
So I kind of think maybe Uncle Alex, who was very good at impersonations. I mean, look, I'll give him that. I've seen what he was good
Yeah.
at impersonating people. I still sort of think maybe if the grandma spoke to JJ or what she thought was JJ in October, I've always sort of theorized maybe it was Alex.
Yep.
It could be Chad, but
So it could be either Chad or Alex. And then my mind started thinking, I'm like, wait a minute. So the attorney advises Charles to change his beneficiary. So it almost seems like they were listening, that Lori and Alex and Chad were listening. Somehow they knew Charles was going to change that. I don't know. I mean, we don't know if they were listening or they weren't, but it just seems odd that all of a sudden the attorney advises him to change it and it gets changed.
right. I wonder if that was requested in an email. Or was it, if it was an email, it's pretty probable because she knew all of his passwords. She was using his Amazon account to buy her wedding ring.
Yeah.
So I would be
exactly,
interested.
so-
But I'll tell you what, I'm sure law enforcement and the FBI probably have a copy of that call.
I bet so.
So it's going to be interesting to see who it was and what was said.
Sure. Yep. So that's what the attorney, talked
Yeah.
about. And
That's interesting.
Yeah.
We hear so much of the same thing, and right now there's, other than these documents that have come out, there hasn't been a ton of new information. So when you hear these little tidbits, it really gives you a lot better insight into that year, where clearly they're making the plans for all of this stuff.
And I will say that his attorney on there he said, no attorney likes to be subpoenaed to testify in a case. But he said he is more than willing and, wants to help Charles because he was a nice guy.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, he was there from before, so he was able to talk to Charles about a lot of stuff he probably didn't mention. So I'm sure it was strange or eerie or however you want to say it when it came true.
Yep.
Can't believe it. So we started watching a documentary on Hulu, and it's about cults and extreme beliefs. I highly recommend it if you haven't watched it. And we had talked about watching this just to get a little insight into cults and how people think. And so we watched the first episode, which was the FDLS. Is that how it is? FDLS.
FLDS.
See,
It was close.
yeah, I get it.
Just
What?
some
E for
different-
effort.
Yeah, just some different
And-
letters. Yep.
If you're not familiar, this is the cult that Warren Jeffs, who was the leader of this. Where was this, in Utah?
Yeah, I think that's where it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a big, huge compound. They had a lot of people living there, child brides, girls as young as 12 getting married to this guy. And there
Yeah.
was a woman on there.
Yeah, I think the number was like 10,000 people there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I guess I must have got up to get some food
Yeah.
when they said that. I didn't know it was
Yeah.
that big. But there was a woman on there, and she was born into this religion. And I think, don't you kind of get the idea she was raised on these compounds her whole life?
Yes.
I think maybe Warren Jeffs took over when his dad died. There were some pictures of his dad on the documentary. So she probably grew up under his dad's, I guess, rule, or however you want to say it. But we've talked about on previous podcasts how people that are in cults, they don't think obviously like we do. And this lady Somebody asked her, what do you think is the appropriate age that a girl is ready to get married? Really, what did she say?
I think she said 10.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, she said 10. And the interviewer sort of was taken aback and said, but what age do you think they're ready, or what age are they capable? Was 10, I believe. And what age are they ready? And she said 18. But the whole point of this is that the entire time she is still, even though Warren Jeffs has been sentenced to life in prison, I've heard that he still sort of remotely runs the religion behind bars, or that sect, or whatever they're called. But she defended him and said he was being persecuted. And this is a convicted child rapist on many counts.
Yeah. And this lady wasn't young. She was in her 60s, probably.
Yeah, she was older.
Yeah.
But it seemed like everybody they talked to sort of echoed what she thought, which is the guy is in prison. He's never getting out. And she was still as faithful to him as if he were right behind her.
Yeah. And I think the point they made in that was one of the cult experts on there said that the leader always tells them that there's going to be persecution and people are going to come after them. And I thought it was interesting because she said on that it's actually a good thing when the prophet or the head person gets arrested, because it shows there's power and they're doing something right, and in their mind, that's what they think.
Right. I mean, so we've seen a lot of people on Facebook and Twitter ask, do we think Lori will ever turn on Chad? And I'm going to tell you, after watching this woman, if Lori truly is just indoctrined into this cult and believes everything, and I think she does, I don't think she'll turn on him anytime soon, if ever.
Yeah, me either.
It was just scary to sit there and watch somebody, a normal person watching it says, wow, how can you even think that? But she was convinced, and she didn't blink an eye. She didn't act like this was anything to talk about, and it was crazy.
Yeah, she literally didn't think that Warren Jeffs had done anything wrong.
Insane.
Yeah.
So one thing I read on Web Sleuths today, I believe it was Web Sleuths, don't quote me on that. I didn't know this, but according to April Parker, who was Lori's friend in Hawaii, the blonde, I thought they kind of looked alike. It was a little weird. But according to April, Lori had, or what she said was a near-death experience in Hawaii. And I'm assuming this is maybe when she lived there with Charles, not for the 50-something days that she disappeared there with Tylee. Had you ever heard that?
I had not heard that.
Yeah, I would like to kind of know more about that, because if that's true, it sort of makes sense that maybe years ago, way before Chad came in the picture, is this how she sort of was led to Chad? I guess doing internet searches, starting to go to these events, and then you find somebody who, lo and behold, has had a near-death experience and says he can talk beyond the veil. I think it'll be interesting to see if they can track back, because Charles had said that even in the court documents with Joe Ryan, and I think at this point maybe she was married to Charles, I don't know if they were in Hawaii, but they were talking about her extreme religious beliefs.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was kind of interesting. I'd never heard that. And I just wonder if that's sort of the time when she started researching this stuff, if she really had a near-death experience. I have them 10 times a day. It's usually because I almost fall, but I don't hear anything from outside the veil.
True.
Or behind the veil. I mean, I'm just saying, I've never heard that she was put in the hospital for anything that was life-threatening. So her idea of a near-death experience may be caught in a wave for 10 seconds. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll have to dig a little bit on that one.
Yeah, it's just very... If you guys have heard anything about that, shoot us a message on Twitter or Facebook. We just saw this today, and there was not really anything that elaborated on it. So I just thought it was interesting.
Yep.
So let's move over to Mark Means. I read today on Facebook, somebody who's local in Rexburg said they have seen his car at the Madison County Jail every single day for like a week or two.
Wow. And he lives, 4 hours away?
Is it Meridian, which is about 4 hours away?
Yeah.
So I kind of wonder, is he staying in Rexburg all week? I mean, look, the dude is in over his head.
Yeah. And we know the documents were sealed, and we were going to touch on that a little bit. I don't know how long he's going to continue to go down this road.
Mm-hmm.
When
yeah.
he's he's not capable.
Right. And I wonder at what point does the prosecutor, I don't know if it's in the best interest of the prosecutor, if you're legal, let us know what you think. But would it be in the prosecutor's best interest to request that when murder charges come, that Mark Means be removed? Because I think it sort of leaves Lori an option when she's found guilty. I don't think a jury is going to find her innocent, to say she had ineffective counsel the whole time. This guy doesn't know his elbow from his finger.
Yeah, it seems like a waste of time that he's continuing to be on this case and research and get her defense together.
Yeah.
And then if murder charges come, we know he doesn't have. He's what, a family court attorney?
Yeah, and I mean, for the desertion, that makes sense.
Sure.
That he's on that case. But now that we have found the kids' bodies and there's almost certainly murder charges coming, I don't know how he's going to do it. But another problem is going to be money.
Yeah. And I don't know how they afford it.
Yeah, because we know Tammy's life insurance policy was upped in the weeks before her death to $450,000. But and then when Lori was arrested in Hawaii, it had went down to $152,000, and that's a lot of money. But in today's world, unfortunately, $450,000 doesn't go far. And if you consider up to this point, Lori's had 5 lawyers, Chad's had at least 2. So you have your retainer fees for all those guys, probably $200 to $300 an hour. You had their Hawaii bills, their travel when they were in Hawaii and back to Rexburg. You had Chad's Rexburg bills, the lifestyle that they were trying to keep up. So what happens when the money runs out? I'm super curious. If Mark Means stays on, is he going to do this pro bono, or is she going to have to get a public defender if they don't remove Means from the case?
Yeah, we've discussed several things here. If that happens, yeah, I don't think he has and I'm no pun intended here, the means to, to represent her pro bono. I think we talked about that would be a bigger attorney to come in, which happens sometimes, and they will do it pro bono.
Yeah, you get some of these guys like, Jose Baez that represented Casey Anthony. Sometimes they like to do that for just the publicity.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You might find somebody who's, I guess, more respected and more experienced that comes in and says, I'll do it for free. Because what happens is, most likely at the end of this big case, they can write a book and make a lot of money.
Sure.
Or they'll get paid for interviews or what. I don't know if they get paid for interviews. I think with murder, there's a stipulation there.
I don't think they do either.
But, I mean, whoever represents her for this trial, Chad too, is probably going to have enough information to write a book at some point. We just want to see what's going to happen with that. Very, very interesting stuff. The other thing that I found today was on Web Sleuth Live. They have a great YouTube channel, by the way, full of information where they talk about this case a lot. But they had Chad and Tammy Daybell's nephew on there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It wasn't an explosive interview, and he didn't have a whole lot to add that we don't know. But a few little interesting facts was that Chad's family didn't talk about his visions very much.
Yeah, I think I saw early on that they kind of separated, that they thought his beliefs were a little out there.
Yeah, it's kind of like you have a family member that believes something really embarrassing, so you just pretend like it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
It's like, don't start.
Between aging and busy lifestyles, many women struggle with maintaining their physical and mental wellness. At Aquavita Concierge Healthcare Services for Women, we can help you revitalize your health and reclaim your life. We start from within by balancing your hormones, allowing your body to achieve and maintain desired weight goals. We also specialize in peptide therapies, regenerative medicine, sexual health, and aesthetics in our state-of-the-art facilities. Feel better, look better, live better at Aquavita. Visit aquavitality.com and begin your journey today.
Talking about that at Thanksgiving, please. And then, obviously, Chad's family was not happy with Chad, or Tammy's family were not happy with him for marrying Lori so soon. No medical conditions for Tammy as far as he knew, and naturally everybody was shocked when she died. And they were confused as to why the funeral was so quick. But at the time, they weren't suspicious of Chad. But you have to remember, this is before any red flags are raised.
Yes.
This is October. The kids are already deceased at that point, but there hadn't been the welfare check, and nobody there knows Charles Vallow. So I guess it just probably at the time seemed like a really big tragedy.
Yeah.
And he also said that as far as he knew, the Daybell kids had cut contact for the most part with other family members in December. So this was right after the story went on the news. I thought that was interesting. You would think that they would gravitate towards family, but we don't know the dynamics. They might not be I have a very close family. You do too, Fruit Loop. Our families are our ride or dies. They know everything about us, but not all families are that way. And we don't know what went on in private. But another thing that I thought was interesting was that some of Chad's relatives did talk to him when he was in Hawaii.
Yeah, I wonder who that would be.
I wonder what they said.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably a little bit of both. What are you thinking? You got married 2 weeks after she died. But the best thing that he said that made me smile was that right now there are plans being made to have a charity put in Tammy Daybell's name. And he didn't elaborate on what kind or when, but apparently it's something her family's trying to do. And I think that's really beautiful. She was a sweet lady, loved children, loved animals. So I would love to see some kind of a charity with maybe even abused kids or something.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah, she just breaks my heart when I think of her. Just such a sad situation all around. But so you're going to talk a little bit more about some of the things you picked up on the Nancy Grace podcast.
Yeah, there was just like little tidbits of information that I hadn't heard. It was kind of interesting. So, this is stuff from just different people, and Nate is talking, and Jay, and I didn't realize this. JJ was contacting Kay and Larry 20 to 30 times a day, and we've both taken care of autistic kids, and they love reaching out on social media.
Oh yeah,
FaceTime, Facebook, Messenger, all that stuff, and they will send you messages 20 and 30 times.
Yes.
That you have to turn your alerts off because they just continue, sending you messages. So JJ was doing that 20 to 30 times a day, and then it just stopped.
Mm-hmm. That would be concerning.
Yes. So I thought that was interesting because I hadn't heard that.
I hadn't either.
So then we get into Lori needing to be in Rexburg by September 4th.
That Chad told her that.
Yes. So Chad tells her that and tells her that Tammy would be dead by then.
Oh.
So we also see that October 2nd was a big day with these guys. October 2nd, she orders the wedding dress.
And the ring.
The ring. Brandon is shot at. So what else? It was
that's when they moved the back seat and the tire from the Jeep into the storage unit. And is that when we see Chad pat her on the bum?
I think so.
Yeah, it was.
So all those things happened on that same day.
Jeez.
Then we see the contents of the storage unit. It was all winter items. So you think, okay, it's getting ready to be winter in Rexburg.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been there, but the winter, it sounds like and looks like it's brutal.
Yeah, I feel cold just looking at pictures of Rexburg in the winter.
Yeah, yeah. So those things were just kind of, I'd read them, but just kind of want to touch base on those a little bit. So Julie Rowe comes on, and I know we don't discuss her much, but so she comes on and tells Nancy that 3 years before Tammy died, Chad told Julie Rowe that that he's had a vision that she would die in a car wreck. So then she says she used to visit them quite often, I guess, when she was in town. And towards the end of Tammy's life, Julie Rowe says, she's there, she's going to stop by. And Chad tells her no, that Tammy was off her meds and was struggling with some jealousy, not to stop by.
Yeah, this for me, I wonder, at this point, I think Tammy just knows something's going on because we don't know if Charles ever reached out, but he sent the email to Adam Cox, which is Lori's brother that has stayed out of this case. That's Zach's father. Is that right?
Yes.
Zach's. Okay, so
Adam. Yeah, he goes by Lucas on Facebook.
yeah,
but
he's a
Adam.
DJ. I think he's a very popular DJ.
Yes.
But anyway, so if you guys remember, Charles got in touch with Adam, and tells him that something's going on between Chad and Lori, and that he had found Tammy's email address and phone number, and he was maybe going to give her a call. So he died in July. This is obviously months later, but you have to wonder, at this point, is Tammy just super upset about finding out about an affair? I don't know that Tammy would have been suspicious about the kids' bodies being in the backyard. I don't know.
Yeah, for some odd reason, I think it's more of the affair.
Yeah. And it coincides with her I know Chad sent her to her parents and that sort of thing, but it seems to me like she wasn't happy, and we know why. But I think it's funny too that Chad tells, I think it was Julie Rowe and one other woman, you said the woman before Lori when we were talking earlier.
Yes.
So he had told two different women that Tammy was going to die. It's like, is he just throwing this against the wall to a few women and seeing if he can find somebody who's willing to kind of take up a relationship with him? I don't know. I mean, it kind of seems probable. I think Chad probably wanted some big polygamous group together.
Yeah, it's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Most cult leaders do.
Yeah. So getting into, we already shared what the attorney, what he had to say. So getting into Rich, the private investigator that was Brandon's private investigator, and later on was Kay and Larry's. So he comments and says that Lori referred to Alex as her avenging angel.
Ooh.
And if you remember, she made the statement to Charles that she had an angel that would clean up his body or get rid of his body or whatever. So he made that statement. And
do you think that Alex did this because his sister was asking, or do you think it was because he legitimately believed in this religion this was his job?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things.
Yeah.
It has to do with all that, put together. 'Cause we know he said he believed it 100% about the zombies.
Right.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's a combination of all of it.
Yeah, I think so too.
So then Rich got into talking about Melanie and Brandon. That up until Brandon was shot at, that there was a regular schedule of exchanging the kids. And when Brandon was shot at, Melanie didn't show up for the last exchange for the kids.
I'm not convinced Melanie was not in that Jeep that day.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think she was.
Yeah. There's a possibility. And I think it's going to come out in court.
I can't wait for this to come out with Melanie. I just think we're going to see her arrested sooner than later.
Yeah. So he says, Brandon is worried about Melanie. Was she harmed because she didn't show up for the exchange? Was she harmed? Was she involved? Like, he just doesn't know. So one of the other things that was interesting was Brandon originally thought that it was a paintball gun coming out of the back of that Jeep. And we've heard that in Tammy Daybell's statement to the police when she was shot at, that she thought it was a paintball gun. So I think that's odd that both times those guns are compared to a paintball gun.
Yeah, and she posted that on Facebook too in I guess their neighborhood group or whatever.
Yes.
But it's obvious that it probably was a silencer.
Yes.
But not many people have silencers on their guns.
No. And I know you have to register those and you pay an extra fee for that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you can get it on the black market and not have to register something like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times with stuff like this, they probably tried not to leave a trail, but they did. Yeah.
Yep. And he points out in the religious aspect of this that their religious beliefs is what caused the destruction of their marriage.
Yeah, I can't imagine living with somebody who thought so many things that were just out there.
Yeah.
And especially when you're raising kids. I mean, when you go to court, if you're divorcing, they do cover religion and what religion is the child going to be. Usually if there was a common religion in the marriage, that's what the judge will say continues. But, they're raising kids. He's trying to provide a stable environment, and she's talking about whatever, zombies. And I mean, that would be a big issue.
Yeah. And you see Lori has introduced all this to Melanie. And Melanie started saying that Brandon was evil. He was possessed, just like Lori did with Charles.
Yeah.
And we see how that ended up. So,
Right.
the other interesting things was this. So the private investigator was able to put a GPS tracker on the U-Haul. So Brandon is wanting to know where Melanie is, where Alex is, because he's fierce for his life. And I mean, that's understandable. So Rich followed Melanie and Alex to a restaurant. And he was wanting to make sure that that was who it was, that it was Alex that he was seeing. Because if you remember the pictures, some of them are at night, and he's taking, shots of pictures of them at night.
It was Halloween night, right?
Yeah, I think so.
When Melanie moved her stuff out of hers and Brandon's home.
Yeah. So this private investigator, he wanted to make sure it was Alex. So he goes in the restaurant and sits at the table next to him.
Oh, he's big.
So just so cool. So he positively identifies Melanie with Alex at breakfast. He said they were engaged in a very quiet, serious conversation. It was kind of dark inside the restaurant, but Melanie was wearing a pair of big sunglasses.
And she thinks she's Britney Spears or something.
Yeah, I thought that was very odd.
I always laugh at people that wear shades in a restaurant.
Yeah, and you can't see. I have prescription sunglasses.
Yeah.
And if I forget to take my glasses, I have to leave them on, but you can't see.
Yeah.
So he said they quickly ate, got out of there, went back, loaded up a few other things in the U-Haul and took off. He then had a friend intercept them in Rexburg. So remember, he's got the tracker on there. So he gets a friend to intercept, to pick up following, where they're going in Rexburg. And all of them congregate at the apartment complex, including Lori Vallow.
Yeah, a little welcome to your new home party.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, when Melanie was moving her stuff out of the marital home to go to Rexburg, Tylee had been dead for almost 2 months at that point, and JJ had been dead for a month. And, people that say, oh, Melanie's an airhead, she just didn't, she didn't know anything about the kids. How can you drive from Arizona to Idaho and never say, hey, have you seen JJ? Have you seen Tylee?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
I mean, if people think that she's going to get off, I don't think it's going to be that easy. I think she's in way more than just Brandon's attempted murder.
Sure. And I think the other thing he kind of touched on was she quickly linked up with Ian, that Ian was in this same cult with Chad. Zulema was as well.
It's a shady cast of characters.
Yeah. So Rich was watching the adults. So Kay and Larry find out, I'm assuming through Brandon, that he had hired a PI and he found out some things. So Kay contacts him and asks him if he's seen the kids.
So at this point, like I said, we're a month of JJ being deceased and almost 2 months of Tylee.
Yes. So Rich realizes that they hadn't seen the kids. He was watching for adults.
That had to have been so scary for Kay.
Yeah.
That first time that you hear, now that you mention it, I have not seen kids for however long he was following her.
Yep. So that's when Kay asked for a welfare check. Rich contacts her and says, no, we haven't seen the kids. And that's when Kay asked for a welfare check.
Unbelievable.
Then we jump over to Rich. This guy is amazing. Like, if you need a PI, I would hire him because he's like really good.
Yeah, I love watching him on the shows. He knows his stuff.
Yeah. So he tracked Lori and Chad to Hawaii. We know that Kay had Charles's passwords, which Charles had given them to her. And we know that Lori had used the Amazon account to order things, and she continued to use that account in Hawaii.
Jeez.
So she's buying stuff there, and that's where they see the Hawaii address, and that's where Rich tracked her there. And I'm like, what? Like, why?
Yeah.
So the big question that Rich asked about the Alex Brandon attempted murder thing is, how does Alex Cox benefit from killing Brandon? And he said it seems logical Melanie was involved.
Yeah. But,
So that's a big question, and we don't know. I mean, we don't know that. It'll be proven in court.
right. But I don't think Alex benefited from killing Brandon other than his standing in the cult and with his little group.
Yeah.
I mean, what does he gain?
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't gain anything. So if you look at Melanie's behavior, it's just like Lori's.
It really is. And earlier when you said that Brandon was worried about her beliefs being just like Lori's, we were talking about earlier before we started the podcast about how it's almost like the marriages echoed each other. Like Melanie must have wanted to be like Lori in all the ways that are terrible.
Yeah. She made that statement on one of the shows she was on.
She also made it on a Facebook or a Instagram post where Melanie had, or Lori had wished her a happy birthday.
Yes.
And Melanie says something to the effect of, I just want to be like you. You're perfect, whatever. And so I guess when her mom died and Melanie was so young, the time she was with Lori, I'm sure Lori was probably nurturing. That's her family. You know, that's her niece. So I'm sure there was a lot of natural affection there. It's just, unfortunately, Lori was a very bad seed, and now everybody's in trouble.
Yeah. So lastly with my stuff, just touching a little bit on, and everybody has this question, you know, July 22nd passes and she's watching the clock the whole day and nothing happens. What happens on that next day? And we've seen it in other cases that, you know, Chad is getting revelations and he's sharing them. We know by other people's testimonies or statements, statements that he was passing information on to them. So in the end, what normally happens with cases like this, where you have a prophet or you have a leader, he's going to say, you know, that he prayed and God's given us more time.
Right.
He's going to say God's given him a new revelation. And this expert that was talking on there, his name's Rick Ross, and he had some cool books I would love to get and read. But he says this, and this sums it all up. The revelations are a part of the manipulation and control to create a feeling of the only safety that I can have is with this leader, and I follow his instructions. Mm-hmm. And I think that sums up that whole group.
Yeah, it does.
And you know, he said Lori has become dependent upon Chad to tell her what is real and not real. He establishes the parameters for her, and we know he was lying to her on the calls before he was arrested. He was telling her like everybody was supporting her and all this will be over soon, and you know, all this stuff, and he was just lying.
Yeah, and she probably believed it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
it's all just mind-blowing. I mean, we have a lot of big things coming up. We've got the preliminaries next month. I'm going to be live tweeting those preliminaries. So let's say you're at work or you can't watch the TV. If you follow us on Twitter, Pretty Lies Alibi, I will be tweeting out every 30 seconds testimony, whatever's happening in real time. When I covered cases before, I did that. And I enjoy doing it, and it's just good for our listeners who can't sit and watch potentially an 8-hour. I don't know that I'll do it the whole eight hours. I have 3 kids, but we're going to do that because it's just something that puts things on the record for us if we need to go back and look, and just helps you guys out. But I'm very interested for these preliminary hearings. We're going to learn a lot. I think that we'll finally start to get kind of the outline of the big picture of what they have. Definitely not going to get all the goods, though.
Yep.
So we have a lot, to look forward to as far as information coming. Waiting on Tammy Daybell's autopsy. We're waiting on the kids' cause of death. Unfortunately, from what we've heard, the bodies have not been released yet. So there'll be some public memorials that Kay had announced. We'll put those on our Twitter. At least the place. I know it was Rexburg, I believe Gilbert, and there was one other place I can't remember. So we'll find out for you guys. But I think that's all for this podcast. We didn't want to do a 2-hour podcast. We're going to upload another one later tonight where we go back into the court documents of the custody issue between Joe and Lori.
Yeah, and we had some other questions that we're going to cover in this next one on Steve Cope, Melanie's dad, and that whole dynamic of the Cox family and some of that. So
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's out there.
Yeah.
Before we forget, hey, Mikhail, we're glad thanks for listening.
Mikhail's our young teenage listener, and we just think she's cute as a button. And she asked us to give her a shout out, and we love doing it. So, Mikhail, hope you're having a great Sunday, sweetie.
Yep. And I think the lady's name who asked us about that, she had some cool questions that we were able to help answer her. I think her name was Carol.
Thanks for those questions, Carol. We
so
love questions. Like I said, tweet us, Facebook us, whatever.
Yeah.
We love to kind of go on a little search for you guys, and that's what it's all about. We try to keep everything pretty much down to the facts. And
yeah, we're trying to dig up, help you guys just dig up some things. And sometimes it's hard, and sometimes we just watch something and something jumps out. So
yep. All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight, or for this one. There'll be another one dropping in just a little bit, but hope you guys have a good evening, and we will see you soon.
Okay, round 2. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right. ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.